Hey everyone, my name's Eric Lay, and I'm a professional League of Legends coach for Elventus. Having been a consistent challenger player over the last few years, I'm going to show you some essential tips to help you climb in Season 10. If you're looking to make some serious strides this season, make sure to join our Discord channel, where our top-ranked experts, including myself, will be offering free sessions to our new YouTube community. This is our very first video, so if you enjoy our content, it would mean a lot if you could share this with your friends. One of the most important things that I think will help you climb in ranks this season is learning how to increase your focus. A lot of times I see players, they go into games and they're just on autopilot. They come home from like a long day of work or a long day of school and they kind of just want to relax and play. But if you have serious goals of improving in League, you got to be willing to focus yourself and remove a lot of the distractions that might be holding you back. I often see players, they log into the client, they start their queue, and they're just watching YouTube videos, they're just hanging out in Discord, they're surfing on Reddit. That just feeds their brain with a lot of different distractions when you could really be using that time to visualize or to plan out the many different things you could be doing to optimize your gameplay. So when you get into the game, you want to make sure you're focused on what's important and that you're free from all distractions and anything that might hold you back. When I reflect back on how I've been able to climb in League, one of the things that I was able to do differently from a lot of other players, I was really able to focus on the things that mattered. I'm visualizing every single thing I could be doing differently. I'm visualizing all the potential, options in the game, the different jungle pathing, the different trades I could be making, the different outplays I could be making in team fights. And just going into each game with that extra layer of focus has really helped me, climb a lot in Season 10. When you go into games, you want to be really focusing on the things that can actually increase the chances of you winning the game. So that means taking ownership over your own actions and figuring out how you can have a larger impact on the game, whether that's focusing on how you can trade more efficiently, or how you can have more efficient jungle pathing, or how you can play towards your win conditions. Making sure you're focused on the different aspects of the game you can control is going to really make a big difference. A lot of times players will ask me whether they should be dodging more or less in their games. The reason why this is a very popular question is because a lot of players are very conscious about losing LP. But what they don't really know is that the only thing that actually affects your climbing is your MMR in the long run. When you understand that principle, you'll realize that even if you dodge 10 games in a row and you lose 100 LP to dodging, as long as you play enough games, by the end of the season, you're still going to end up in the same place. You're probably going to win more LP per game, you're probably going to lose less LP per game, and eventually all the things will level out. This is why it's so important to dodge when you have team comps or teams that are suboptimal. Anytime you can increase your win rate and the chances of you winning your game, you should really be taking those opportunities. That means if you have a team comp that's just completely horrible, maybe you have an all AD team comp and you're versing a Malphite and Rammus, maybe you shouldn't be going to that game because the chances of you winning are much lower. The only thing that really affects your MMR in the end is your win rate. So it's very important that you do whatever it takes to make sure you're putting yourself in the best positions to succeed. I know this isn't necessarily the most fun or most exciting of tips, but back when I'm grinding in high elo, especially in the end of the season, I made sure I was dodging at least 3, 4, 5 times a day. I wanted to make sure that every single game I played had the highest chances of winning. If I was going to get into game with some of the top players in North America, that I was going to put myself in a position where I had the best chances of winning that game. And if that meant dodging 3 times in a row, then that meant dodging 3 times in a row. So I'm going to piggyback a bit on something we talked about earlier, which is focus. One of the things that you can really do to increase your climbing in this new season is by actually just taking breaks in between your games. It's very easy to get caught up in the grind of things where you play one game, you lose, and you just want to instantly hit requeue, or if you're just having some really good games, you just want to keep the flow going, you want to keep requeuing and just keep grinding. But from my experience, and from my experience not just as a player but also as a coach, what I've noticed is that a lot of times when you keep playing games back to back to back, you start to have a lot of recency bias in terms of the way you play. Maybe you're coming off a really awesome game where you went 10-0 on Lee Sin, but if you just requeue instantly, you might go into that game with a level of overconfidence. And you can also see the flip side. You might be coming off a really tough loss. You went 0-6 on Alistar, and then you go into it with a very negative mindset. And obviously, if you go into a game with a negative mindset, the chances of you actually playing well and actually contributing to a positive team environment is going to be a lot lower. So you don't want to have that recency bias when you go into games. So one thing that can really help with that is just taking a few minutes after a game is over to take a break, whether that means grabbing a glass of water or going for a short little walk, or do something that I really like doing, which is like going for a short meditation exercise or something like that. These are some tips that can really help you get your mindset in the right place so that when you start that next game, you're fresh, full of energy, and ready to perform at the best of your abilities. I think it's really important that you focus on playing the champions that you're actually good at in ranked. We talked a little bit about how the only thing that really affects your MMR is your win rate. So you want to be doing whatever you can to increase your win rate. If your sole goal is to climb, you want to be focusing on champions that you actually have mastery over. You can even just look at your last season or your preseason games. If you had 100 games and 30 of them were on Riven, but your Riven win rate was only 35%, and your overall win rate was 55%, even if it's your most played champion, you probably don't want to be playing any more Riven in the new season, considering how much you've played that champion and the fact that you still have such a low win rate with it. This is hard for a lot of players to hear, but it just depends on whether you're playing for fun or if you're playing to actually climb. If you want to spend a lot less time getting better at champions and actually climbing, then you're probably better off focusing on, a few champions at once, and the champions that actually have the best win rates and best stats, because, stats don't lie. So you'll look at tier lists and you'll see like Lee Sin's like an S tier jungler in high elo, or Senna's really strong, and they'll end up just playing whatever they think is strong in the meta. But when you look at even the challenger ladder, you'll find there's a lot of one tricks, people playing champions that no one even thinks is strong. You'll see a lot of different players who are playing champions that are not necessarily the strongest, but be able to climb past D1, Masters, Grandmasters, and Challenger because they have such strong mastery over their champions. And this is why when I coach, new players or old players, they ask me, how do I climb as efficiently as possible? I usually tell them to just focus on what they know, focus on what has been working for them, and double down on that. A lot of people talk about how there's certain champions that are like unplayable. There's champions like Wukong, or, there's champions like Teemo, or there are champions that people think are just really bad in the current meta. If you know all the matchups for a single champion, you can always make it work. Even for champions like Wukong, which have one of the lowest pick rates and win rates in solo queue, you'll still see there are a few Grandmasters, Masters players that play only Wukong because they have such strong mastery over it. If Wukong was stronger in the meta, it'd be a lot easier for them to climb to maybe Challenger, but they're still able to compete with the best of the best because they really have that mastery. So first step would be to really get the mastery over the champions that you're actually good at, whether it's a few junglers, a few mid laners, a few supports, or if it's just one or two. Focusing on achieving champion mastery first, and then from there you can build up your champion pool once you sort of reach that point where it's just like, okay, I feel like I have almost perfect mastery over this and I kind of want to diversify my pool a bit more. When I work with new students, I always ask them this one question, and I ask them, if you want to go pro, if you want to get to Challenger, how badly do you want it? Because everybody says they want to go pro, everyone says they want to get to Challenger. What they don't realize is that they're competing against thousands of other people who are just as high rank as them, who are just as talented at the game, and who have real goals, real ambitions, and real motivation to climb. It's very easy for people to say, oh, I'm motivated to climb, I'm willing to work super hard, I'm going to put in like 16 hours of a day to actually climb in League. But what does that actually matter in the end if you aren't actually putting in the hard work? And hard work is not based off of how much time you play, because I know many silver, gold, plat players, no flame to you guys who are in silver, gold, or plat, but I do have a lot of friends in that elo range, and they've played thousands of games per season, and they're still the same rank in season 10 and season 9 as they were in season 6, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I think it's really important that you focus not just on the quantity of games you play, but the quality. Because once you hit a certain threshold, and once you sort of hit that plateau where the more games you play, you aren't really climbing, you got to find ways to innovate, find ways to actually do more than what you're doing right now. There's this quote I really like, which is, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results. If you keep beating your head against the wall thinking that, you're going to break through, you're probably not going to break through. But oftentimes there's a door you can actually open to get to the other side. And that door, when it comes down to training, is not necessarily playing more and more games, because everyone's doing that, but it's doing the work that people are not necessarily willing to put in. Maybe that means doing VOD reviews before and after games. Maybe it means studying some of the top pro players, studying and taking notes on their micro and macro movements. Maybe that means going into each game with a fresh mindset, taking breaks before and after your games. Or it could even just be doing mental training, doing mindfulness practices, meditation practices so that you can reduce your tilt. There's so many different small and big things you could be doing to put yourself in a position to succeed, but it's not just how many games you're playing, but really think about how high quality your games are and how high quality your practice is if you really want to improve. One of the tactics that I really like employing for my students is this sort of slingshot effect. Sometimes you have to take a few steps backwards, really challenge yourself, push yourself out of your comfort zone to do stuff that you might not be good at, so that you can really practice on those weaknesses so that eventually you can get really good at it. So there are times where you gotta take a step or two backwards so that you can take a few steps forwards and really evolve as a player. Because if you keep doing the same thing again and again, you're not gonna improve. So sometimes it comes down to how can you innovate in your training, or how you can focus on something different that you haven't really focused on before. Another thing I think that's really important for climbing is like developing a growth mindset. I think that's like the foundation of my coaching philosophy anyways, is like understanding what a growth mindset is. And to go over what a growth mindset is really quickly, it's that mindset where you have that obsession, that drive, where no matter what happens in every single game you play, you're going to find an opportunity to use it as a learning experience to become a better player. If you can instill this mindset into your practice, if you can instill this growth mindset where every single failure, every single moment of success, every single moment of failure is an opportunity to learn and grow as an individual and as a player, you're going to be able to climb in no time, because every single game is just that much more efficient when it comes to learning than someone who's just autopiloting, going through their games, not really reflecting, not really obsessing over every single minute detail that can be improved. Hey guys, if you made it this far, leave your IGN in the comments below with some of your goals for this season, and I'll be adding a few of you to my friends list. Remember to join our Discord where Eric Lay himself, that's me by the way, will be offering some free coaching sessions to our new YouTube community. We'll be delivering new content every Saturday, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out, because when you subscribe, I might actually be able to get my editor out of his mother's basement.